Item that's called to the public. Any members of the public need to say anything or want to say anything?
David Phelps, it's a work session, I understand, but when we get down into the weeds of the budget and stuff, I think there's some challenges to the numbers presented, and I'd just like to be able to respond at more appropriate time.
Just be clear, this is not a work session. This is a committee meeting.
Right. But the way the structure is on your.
Yeah, well, we're just here to
say public comment anywhere else.
Yeah, no. Oh,
And I'm trying to
understand. No, I understand. This is so. No, I appreciate that. If you've got some, the agenda item is more informational for us.
Yeah, super.
And so that's just.
So could I just put up my hand if I get to the point where I think more information would be used?
Sure. If you'd like to make comments during a particular item, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Perfect.
So
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other general comments for the public? Okay, then we'll go no new business. And since the items A and C, Sean's just coming in, is probably has some input on. So the item C is the status of town CAP water supply and ongoing efforts to supplement water resources. I know this was an item, all three of these were on the last agenda and there was some discussion on all of it. I know that the southern states have put forth a new proposal, or an amended proposal, if you will, trying to bridge for the next 2 years. That came out early May. I don't know if that impacts anything the town is anticipating or expecting at this point, or it's too early to tell.
It's too early to tell what's going on right now. And yeah, we're watching everything we can. You know, we are a small fish in a big pond in relation to CAP water rights and trying to deal with issues. We are trying to look at multiple things right now, including a project that Phoenix announced of trying to do some water exchanges that would create basically a water market for anybody who has any unused water CAP that we could buy in a municipal capacity. So yeah, the proposals by the southern states, the lower basin states, still needs to go through Bureau of Reclamation. So we're still waiting for the Bureau of Reclamation to make their final determination of what the numbers will be next year. So it is very frustrating right now because everybody, you know, there's been some documents released, including the Bureau of Reclamation did their environmental impact statement, which in that document, they basically said the lower basin states have to take it and take all the cuts and different versions of how bad that could be. Which now the lower basin states have been arguing did not follow the original compact on the Colorado River at all. So yeah, it's very challenging and frustrating right now because there is no certainty. We're trying to keep all of the town's options open. The two biggest ones that we're really focused on are some water exchange agreements that we have. We're hopeful that the one with the city of Peoria will come forward this next month to get adopted. It's going to their council actually, I think, on the 16th. And we'll probably have a special session then following week, I think on the 24th is what's being discussed right now for us to agree to it. We want their council to agree to it and then approve it, and then we'll countersign it.
Who's that with, Sean?
City of Peoria.
Peoria, okay.
And that's to allow us to do a water exchange with Peoria. We actually have water credits stored in a CAP facility that City of Peoria has a mechanism to get out on our behalf. So, and then we're also working on a similar agreement with the city of Surprise. They've told us that they can't take it to their council till August. So that's not the only solution we have, but that's probably the most viable one we have in place, that we get access to our long-term storage credits through the two mechanisms while we figure out other long-term augmentations. Some shorter-term augmentations have been discussed. Again, the City of Phoenix exchange program that they discussed. We'd have to join on to that, and no costs have been discussed on that, though. So
you mentioned earlier that Phoenix was taking a look at a water market, you know, and that's something that really appealed to me. I was going to suggest it, that we talk to them about buying. Our amount is just rounding, you know, to them. But if they could supply us, you know, just a little bit excess from there, whatever the price is, and we have the hookup now, which should facilitate the transfer, that might be a good ace in the hole for us.
Yeah, again, Phoenix, we've had a discussion for a while with Phoenix, and they've been keeping us in the loop that they were trying to deal with a project that would allow exchange of Colorado River irrigation rights, which actually in some cases are higher priority than the Colorado River, the CAP river rights, and doing some water exchanges that involves the city of Tucson. So yeah, we're excited to be part of that they're considering that. We have talked to them overall about wholesaling of water. They haven't wanted to go too far with that conversation at this point.
Yeah.
So, but they are keeping us in mind with these other solutions that they're working with.
Well, maybe they'll take pity on a small little town to the north and help us out.
Yeah, if you talk to them, again, we are a small proportional flow to what they have, but in reality, if you look at all the pressures that everybody has, until we know what the cuts are coming, we really don't know what everybody's planning towards. There's some scary scenarios that people are trying to plan around right now, like no cap water. How would you make that work?
Mhm.
So it's frustrating not having that determination coming down from the federal government.
As far as no cap water, any progress on the 3 wells that you've been trying to rehabilitate?
Some progress has been made. The well line extension underneath the wall at the treatment plant has been done. So we actually have a valve in the line now, and we've actually been mapping out and testing actually the well line through the town core. In the first set of tests, we actually found or created a leak. So now we have to go back and fix that. So staff have to go back into it. So, but we do actually have a way of getting the water now from the right well into the well line, and then also to isolate that with a valve to the south. We have Black & Veatch is engaged to help us give the numbers together to understand, to give us the parameters of the pump and motor sizes that we need out there, and then we'll start pricing that out. So we had a meeting with them last week on that.
So right now there's no pump or motor in any of the wells that you're looking at?
No. So the one good thing is that the what we refer to as the right well, which is on the water treatment plant site, there is already a power circuit that's set aside for it. It's actually at the plant site. So the other two, the triangle well, which actually is well placed from a standpoint of it could be used to augment the golf course demands because the golf course fill line runs right in front of that site, as well as the raw water line, which then would allow that water to come back to the treatment plant. That one has to go all the way from the ground up. So what we need to do, and we have a scope of work with Black & Veatch, is to do enough of a design that allows us to get pricing and then also make the submittal so we can start the process with APS to get the new power circuits for that site done. The Linda site on Linda Drive, south of Cave Creek Road, actually has 2 existing meter sockets. So we actually probably need to reach out, and I can do that this week, to APS to have them come out and look at them and see if either of those can be re-energized anytime soon. There's a transformer right adjacent to the site. And then, we probably just need to ask them to come out and give us a site inspection and see if either one of those 2 meters can be energized. It's a unique well, the Linda Drive well, because in the past, it actually used to feed a brew pub in town, and it used to send them raw, untreated groundwater, and they actually ran a separate power circuit. So if you actually go out there, you actually walk into it, and there's electrical panels on both sides with 2 different meter sockets. So I'm hopeful that one of those could be re-energized, and then that would have power to that site, and we'll just have to start repaying the monthly bill on that one. So, but so Black & Veatch is working on getting us the numbers to allow us to go get the bid process going. We do have a couple of contractors that we have standing contracts, so we've been talks with them until we have to give them the numbers as far as the volume and the pump flows. We're on hold, but Black & Veatch is working on that for us.
So are the rough estimates on the cost of rehabilitating those in the budget, which is an item here also? But
yeah, we've got a budget over $1 million to bring the 3 wells back online. So we're a little frustrated with the testing of the well line. Staff did actually find 2 well valves on the well line at the intersection of Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse Road that had been buried for a number of years. But we're afraid that there's some other, when they're trying to refill the line, they couldn't get water all the way out to the east side of the line, which is the Vermeesh well. We're not planning to bring Vermeesh online right now, but that's the extension. That was actually the last well functioning working. So we're surprised that when we're trying to fill it from the plant side, that we're not getting water out to the east side of the pipe. So we're stymied a little bit right now. We're still working on it.
any other committee members have questions on item A?
Nope. And just about that, we actually have a water forum coming up. So in June, we're going to be having a presentation and everybody will be invited to that. It's a public information. It's trying to figure out the date on this right now. I had it on my calendar here. It's June 17th at 5 p.m., 5 till 7 p.m. We were trying to get both ADWR and CAP staff involved. So I think at this point, I think Bo's been trying to coordinate that. And I think we were told ADWR has now declined to attend. So, but we're still have someone from CAP committed. It'll be myself and then Brad Hill and Michelle Van Quaffen from the town side to talk. And then, we've been hearing a lot of concerns in the public. So we want to put everything out there that we can as far as what's going on and what we can provide, knowing that we still don't know. It probably won't be till next month, if not August, that we'll actually get the determination from the federal government about the cuts for next year.
Yeah, that sounds good. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss that. I'm going to be out of the city, so.
Yeah, it will be videoed, so it will be available via the YouTube site and those to watch live and or to stream after the fact. So yeah, our goal is to provide, we've done several presentations over the years, including the last one that Brad Hill and myself did just at the beginning of this year. But this is going back to more so the one we started in 2022. We did in September 2022, we did a water forum where we had ADWR, CAP staff and our staff there to just discuss everything. So we're trying to follow up with it. And we're hearing that there's a lot of concern in the community. So we thought it was best to actually hold a public meeting as a town staff, just to explain what's going on and all the balls that we have in the air. And again, the unknowns, we have known unknowns, which is we're waiting for the Bureau of Reclamation to tell us what the cuts are going to be. So.
Okay, there's no other comments from committee members. We will move on to item B, which is discussion on general rate design, including base rate and usage tiers. Robert, I'll let you take the lead on that. I think that's your baby.
The rate tiers, this is just what has been enacted, by the council.
Mhm.
What we had proposed, Bill, was to expand on this, the next time around, probably introducing a new plan around the fourth quarter of this year.
Yeah. And my thoughts on that are what I think, and I haven't done a lot of research on how it fits. And I know one of the questions are from the meeting that we had last month that I wasn't here. You wanted some data, staff to provide you some data, last year's data on rate blocks and usage and things like that. So
Particularly usage,
Yeah.
Number of customers by usage blocks. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So we're not in a position to discuss anything really in detail.
This is a done deal,
Yeah.
so,
What I was going to suggest or throw out as an idea as you're thinking through this and looking at that is instead of going from 30 to 40, have a block that, and again, I don't know what the ultimate will be, but have one big tier at the end that's more goes from 30, and then that stays the same until probably about 70, 75. And then that's when you put the penalty, a big thing on that. Again, no magic there, just think that. And then in addition to that, for everything over 20,000, you have a increasing tier. There's a surcharge to pay for water. It's a water replacement fee. That's just a flat fee per 1,000 gallons. But it's tiered. Just so
that was essentially, I think you might have received this. This was maybe 3 meetings ago. This was an Excel model that I put together, and Ryan's got the model. And what this did was introduce some new tiers. We had 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 70, and over 70. And we had increasing cost for each one of those tiers. And the excess money that they would generate would go exactly as you're saying to fund the securing of the additional water that we need, any shortfalls.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is that instead of having additional blocks, actually try to eliminate a block, except to have one that's at the very side, the larger size. And that, but deal with that and get your revenue for, in other words, stop it at 30,000 as your largest block until you get to the big block. So that from 30, so you're not working through all those tiers, but that's.
It looks like Nancy's got her hand up too.
Okay.
Nancy, you on?
Yeah, yes. Hi. I like the multiple tiers, which was similar to what we were working on last year. So I'm voting on that side of the house. I like the fact that that gives the user a reason to conserve. And that's why I like the multiple tiered theory in my book. That's what I'm going for.
Bill, it's my feeling that a standard amount, allowable amount, a reasonable amount is 10,000 gallons a month. You know, so that should be kind of the base rate. Anything over that, I think should come at an additional cost. And that's why I was introducing these tiers. You know, each one is a little bit more painful, and we're trying to, through pricing, motivate people to use less. You know, I don't want to wait until we get up to 70 and then hit them big. You know, I'd rather do it a little bit along the way. I agree, 70 should be, you know, very painful, you know, but I don't think we should wait that long before we hit a higher price.
Well, I guess I'm saying that at 30, you're going to hit a pretty high price. And then at 70, it's even going to be much higher.
Absolutely.
That's what I was suggesting. Is
Absolutely. Yeah.
that you don't need to incrementally go from 30 to 70. You know, at 30, the pain should be hitting and, you know, and that would be enough to deal with it. But obviously, I just thrown out my idea because I wasn't here last meeting and wanted to at least put it on the table, like working through your machinations and because that's kind of where I'm leaning and what I be looking at data, try to get to deal with that.
And that's something I need to get you guys. I mean, ultimately, we need to get you the usage tier, you know, customer type classification, because typically, you know, we're thinking probably a lot about residential customers too, right? But the commercial customers.
Primarily residential. I think business, you know, that's a totally different animal. I think they have to almost be looked at individually.
You can't do it individually, but you definitely have to look at them. And as was mentioned by Sean at the last meeting, certainly we want to have disincentives to do business here for water, just because it's water consuming per se. I mean, we need to be careful not to overly penalize a business because it happens to bring some water consumption with them. And so those tiers should be reflective of the value that's brought
Agreed.
by what they bring into the town as well.
There are various educational things though that we can bring up, you know, like one of the big bugaboos, and my wife, for example, she hates when they bring a big 16-ounce glass of water unasked, you know,
Yeah.
we should educate our restaurants, you know, don't give it that much and don't do it until it's asked for, you know, and it's just a little bit amount, but you know, and the mentality is that, you know, we don't want to waste it.
Nancy?
And they would not be doing that if we start looking at businesses. And I think we need to look at business. I've said this and I'll keep saying it until we do it. We do need to look at businesses. And if we need to change the fee structure and the rate structure for them to make it to their advantage to do things that you just said, then that's what needs to be done. Because if we don't do this now and start, as we all know by looking at what's happening in the West, it's going to happen. I mean, it's not when, or it's not if, it's when. So I agree with needing to really look at businesses as well.
I'm not disagreeing that it needs to be looked at. I just think you have to look at it with a little different eye than you do residential. How that comes down is open for discussion, but
Right.
But I do think keeping them as a separate class and dealing with them specially is appropriate, and not trying to just have one size fits all type of thing.
Right.
So I'm not disagreeing with you, Nancy, just a little different flavor on it. Any other comments on this particular one that
No, I think we have some more work ahead of us, and it would be very helpful, just to have the demographics, of how the usage is going today. So we know how to structure the different tiers.
My apologies on that. I was supposed to get that for you, so I'll get
I know you're working 3 jobs.
our best.
Yeah, and that does lead into for the community notes, there has been discussions that while we just did the rate update, this is in effect for the next 2 years, there's already discussions that are we already falling behind. We did not adopt, in this last study, we talked about it, but we didn't get to it, which was a new a water resource impact fee. You just mentioned about using the usage fees to help pay for water resources, but has been a discussion about creating a water resource fee that last time we looked at the impact fees was actually back in 22, and we did a fairly substantial increase in that. Part of the problem with impact fees is that you have to have the project identified and you have to have an idea of the cost, and we don't have them formalized yet. So that's what sort of the chicken and egg that we weren't able to do that with. But all good discussions, and we've talked about, do we re-engage Reptalis to come help us with this study, because a lot of this goes into their model. I don't want to replicate and or duplicate what they're doing if they can help us do this. And then also, just you guys are aware that Town Code has it by October. I actually have to give a presentation. Once we find out what the cuts are for next year, I will give a presentation to council about what our water resources look like next year and what stage of our drought management plan will be in. And as part of that then triggers some other things in Town Code of things that we need to look at, start looking at, like things like surcharges and stuff like that. Up to about 20% cuts in the CAP water, we can sort of, I think, weather next year without having to go beyond our current. We're actually in drought plan stage 0, because we actually have water resources to recharge this year. Next year we'll be, if we can weather it with no cuts, we'd only be in drought stage 1. So it doesn't trigger a lot of the things that Town Code allows us to, but is it more prudent for us to be proactive than reactive and waiting for the cuts to get to the 10, 20% levels, which is then allows us to do a lot of draconian measures. All good conversation, but again, we're waiting for to find out what the cuts are. But yeah, I think if we can get some numbers and you can see where we're at, we'll have to take a look at how much latitude we have as a water utility provider to provide different rates to different customer classes, like businesses. Again, the town's general fund dollars are dedicated. We don't have property taxes, so it's sales tax dollars. And right now, those sales tax dollars are also helping supplement run the utilities. So how does that all factor together? And then what restrictions do we have in place? That might be a good conversation if you want to go down that path. That we could ask Kevin at Reptalis, I wonder if he can give us a summary on where we're at before we go off too far. And I'd hate to have us go off on a tangent that we think it said, come back later and said, no, you can't go down that legally. And I can look back at some of the reports we did previously, but I wonder if Kevin just might be a good person to reach out to. And I wonder if he can give us some summary of some parameters, or maybe I can have him come and present to us real quick for even virtually just do something to give us an idea. We have been talking internally about re-engaging their firm to continue their work on the rate modeling to help pay for the what we believe are going to be ongoing increases in the operational costs and with water resources as that's come forward. So
my understanding was that re-engagement wouldn't occur until the next fiscal year, which starts July 1. Is that what you're still thinking? Sometime after that?
Yeah, again, we're a few short weeks away from that. When do we get him on board? I think we should pause a little bit till we know what's going on with the CAP, the final cuts, and help us hone in on some of these costs and then some of these other programs, so we can actually get some true costs and what things are going to be. But I think having some of those discussions early, so I'm wondering if he's able to engage with us as a committee. So, again, I know there was some frustration last study that you guys weren't actively involved in, getting ahead of that and actually getting you to see the front end of that process would be good. And we got really good. We're getting much better data. After last year's meter change out project, we made a lot of progress on cleaning up a lot of the Cave Creek metering. And now with the AMI metering that we have in place for 60%, which is majority of the Cave Creek customers, I think there's only a handful, literally a handful, a couple of dozen at most, of customers we're not getting our data from. We actually have a really good clean data set to work with, and it's only getting better. We're hopeful that we can get another meter collector site up here before the end of the fiscal year. It's actually in the Desert Hills area, but actually will help back up the Cave Creek system. Hopefully we start picking up some a tranche more meters out in Desert Hills very quickly once that site's up.
You mentioned an October presentation on the drought management. Would it be possible to have a discussion regarding what you're going to present at the September meeting? Or if we had a September meeting, so we kind of know and can maybe have some comments before you have made your presentation?
Yeah, so what is it? It's in town code. It says by October, I'm supposed to present to council the water projections for the following year. That's what I have to do. That's per the drought management plan, the code amendments that we made in 2022. Actually, it's 2023, we did the code amendments. It says
So by October?
by October, I'm supposed to do a presentation to council and
Okay.
to give them a forecast of our water projections for the following year.
Okay, so my question is, would it be possible for us to have a preliminary discussion with you prior to that, whenever you're gonna do that, whether it's gonna be the end of September or whatever, where, and so, you know, where we can set up so we can hear what you're gonna say, and if we have any thoughts, and input to give you. You don't have to accept it, obviously,
Oh, no,
but it's always easier to have the input
Yeah.
before.
And just,
you set
the October date was set because that's typically when our water orders are due. So the
Sure.
timing is timing wise, that's when our CAP water orders are due. And then so we'll be notified. Again, it's usually July, if not August, when we get the 24-month projection, which gives us the next what will happen next January through December of the following year, a certainty of what the cuts will be. So yeah, we'll let you know that. Yeah, there's no problem talking before that. But yeah, I'll just let you know that we put that in town code as a way for us to start a discussion with town council. The town code does outline some suggestions on things depending on where we fall in our water priorities and if there's a shortage of what we can do, but it actually requires action by council. So the thought was we do that in October, and then we start the process of enacting things like surcharges and all that we can, per town code, we have the authority to do it outside of a rate study.
Yeah,
Too.
all
Yeah.
I'm suggesting is part of scheduling and thinking of
Yeah.
what you've decided, when you're gonna be able, when you think you're gonna give it to staff, when you wanna have it prepared
Yeah.
for council, if we can, the month before, you know, have a meeting with us, or at least a couple weeks, if you give us a little
No.
heads up, we'll try to set up a meeting that we can all attend and just have a preliminary. I realize nothing's final till it's presented, so.
Hey, Nancy, is your hand up again?
I can't listen. Oh, there it is.
Looks like maybe your hand's up. No.
Nancy, is your hand up? Might have walked away.
No, they didn't put it down.
Want to make sure.
Okay, anything else on rates and at this point? Okay, then we'll move on to C, which is committee discussion and staff update on the tentative fiscal year 2027 water and sewer utility budget. There was extensive discussion on this last time. I think, well, I don't know if that was mostly on last year, where you are on this year's budget, or whether it's on next year's budget. I was a little confused as to exactly what was being presented.
It was really last year's and performance against it. But I would suggest that you talk about your objectives. You know, we don't really need to review the numbers like the salary and stuff. Point out some of the big factors you're concerned about. Obviously, electricity is one of them. And obviously manpower is another one. But the major projects you're trying to achieve during this next fiscal year, that would be helpful.
I would agree. That's what I think would be a good focus, if you don't mind, Sean.
Okay, so, yeah, you know, we've been just, you know, and I'll just skim through, we spent a lot of time actually putting those descriptions into the budget book. But you hit on a few things because, you know, based on our current projection, you know, the biggest single cost to the utility is staffing. Second biggest from a contractual obligation or contract is actually electricity. We anticipate that next year, actually, the cost of water may start to increase and actually equal to, and then potentially, I'm not sure if it'll happen next year, but the following year probably it will actually, the cost of water will actually exceed our electrical costs. The one thing we're focused on next year is we're getting very close to wrapping up the new interconnect site with the city of Phoenix. And then it's scheduled to come operational probably end of June, July. I don't have a firm end date because I'm actually waiting for the city of Phoenix to give me some information on where they are in their testing of their booster pump station. we have been given notice by Phoenix that they were initially waiting till they complete their water line improvement on Lone Mountain before they allow us to get a connection. And they've actually since said that, no, yeah, they'll allow us once the booster station is ready. So that gained us potentially 2 months of getting that right. So now we're trying to wrap up our project and get our project commissioned. Getting all the programming in place and actually testing out the pumps and everything. So we're able to accept that water from Phoenix and then run it through our system. So they're looking at out, and as we start to use and that actually leads into things, staffing resources, because, you know, we staff our plant right now. It's been a few years since we've had to run the plant 24/7, except for an emergency. When I first got here, we typically would run it 24/7 in the summer just to keep up with water demands. After we lost the Carefree customers, our demands dropped enough that we don't have to do that. We've got a little bit of a gap. So I think we're running about 20 hours of production right now at the plant. But we're looking forward to how we're actually going to restaff that plant and distribute the current staff and maybe go down to a single shift and what that shift should be. So there's a lot coming with this change in the town system. I'd say it's the biggest single change since 2008 after the town bought the system and we rebuilt the water treatment plant, the Neary site, the Carroll Heights, and the Rockaway sites that became which is now the new backbone of the water systems. This is the next fundamental change in how we provide water to our customers. And we're very want to be very careful and see how we can get best utilization out of that City of Phoenix connection for the next approximately 18 months. So it's until December of next year. We actually have a pretty good rate from Phoenix. They actually, per the IGA, every 2 years they give us a rate of what they're going to charge us to divert, treat, and deliver our water to us. It's our water resources. I remind everybody, we're not wholesaling water resources from Phoenix. They're only treating our water and giving it and delivering it to us. They've told us that after next year to anticipate it'll start to go up because as they've had capital improvement costs that they've had to do to augment their system and doing things like even their Cave Creek Advanced Water Purification Plant project they're working on, that will actually be feeding into their Deer Valley facility, and they're actually going to have us pay for a proportional share of the capital cost of that project. They haven't done that yet. We expect that to happen in the next rate update too.
Will the current president's relaxation of water impurities affect us at all? If they remove some of the requirements that had been previously in place
Well, I
for
think
filtration?
I think what I've been hearing is the PFAS. They've been talking about backing down on implementing PFAS. I'm not sure of anything else.
Yeah, I know that Scottsdale's wasn't renewed. They're working towards trying to get that potable reuse one renewed. So part of it has to do with additional constituents that they need to start testing for to allow it to go into the potable drinking water system.
So as far as we know, our requirements have not changed.
It's not a direct impact to us, but if that facility does get online, there are going to be additional requirements for them and testing requirements that we will report since we will be accepting water from Phoenix. So they'll have a period of going through some due diligence themselves and getting it. But as of right now, my understanding is permitting from the state, right? It's just Scottsdale.
I think the question really was, are there any reductions in the requirements that have gone into effect or actually approved that will be going into effect that reduce the costs and, makes more water available, such as, and I don't think this is one of them, but arsenic is a big issue out here. So,
Yeah.
Anything like that has actually, the restrictions have gone down a little bit so that, some of the costs of testing.
Restrictions that not
Yeah.
gone. There will be an increase in restrictions. So indirect cost.
Okay. Just curious.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah. As doing that, let me walk through some of the highlights. Because our budget year, we talked about current year accomplishments and then we got future, but we actually have some things that we're still working on in this current year's accomplishments, like the rollout of the My360. I can't say enough about, again, trying to get the more people to access that system. Even if we're not able to get the hourly AMI metering, I think the My360 still provides people with a lot of value because you can get at least monthly data from us of 2 to 3 weeks before we can actually send you out a bill. So you actually see the information so you can start addressing any customers who currently would have an AMR meter, would see that information before we send you a bill on it. So
I
it's still some
would
value
like to
us.
give you the highest kudos for that system and installing it. And I hope everybody in this room has the Mind 360 and is using its functionality. We try to promote it at our meeting.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, I think, for us, and then hopefully it allows people to see stuff, and then we see a lot of benefit in that. We've got a lot of interesting projects on the board because, we did do a redevelopment or a new development agreement with Cahaba Springs. They are moving forward with that project. The new developer is looking to add the booster pump stations to allow that water to get up to the top of the hill. We've had a couple of conversations with them. So that the development agreement just got done this past fiscal year, but moving forward, it's actually going to be into the design and construction. They're eager to get going with that, to get that site up and operational so they can send that water to the top of the hill. Good thing is that actually also then once that line is energized, then it allows the West Side DeWitt customers, well, they have to form the DeWitt, but it actually would energize that line to allow them to get service off of it. So once they form the DeWitt, we are still frustratingly working with Maricopa County on the water treatment plant permit. We started that process last year. They've had some changes in staff again at Maricopa County, but we have a formal submittal into them. So we're hopeful to get some feedback on them shortly. We've sort of got a deadline ourselves at the end of the year to get modifications to the plant done. That's going back to thinking back 5 years now. Just under 5 years ago, we added the Paul membrane treatment units at the water treatment plant to help with water quality of the facility. It's helping us produce the best quality water the town's had before. But when it was originally permitted, the Paul membrane units were considered as a pilot study, and that's how they were permitted. In fact, we're actually operating them, and we intend to operate them, especially with the city of Phoenix. It's the primary water supply, our water treatment at the plant, but we have to get the permit modified for that. So we're hopeful. There's been some changes of staff in Maricopa County, so we're hopeful that the new staff are more. We thought we had it all in place last year, and then they changed staff, and they threw a curveball to us. We're hopeful that we can catch that curveball and put it on the ground and walk away from this one. Besides for that, again, trying to keep up with our staffing right now. I'll be honest with the big project we been working on is council asked us to follow up on the idea of being that we have a fairly large capital program still to implement. And in fact, a lot of the capital program, remind people that we have identified in the 2024 master plan. A lot of those projects date back to before the town even bought the water systems and did appraisals on the water systems and had identifications done, and then the master plans that followed through. So a lot of these projects are over 20 years old. It's just when can we afford to implement them? But we have some challenges to get built and some things to improve the system with and find new water resources. So has our council asking us to do an invitation for bidders about trying to see if there's some private water utilities that are interested in buying this system. So we're trying to work through that process, and that has, I'll be honest with you, impacted employee morale. So I'm hopeful that it was finish this process up. It won't be finished till the fall. So we're hopeful that we don't get too much more people and we can keep our staff on board. We actually built up a really good staff. Now we've been losing staff again, and it's been a struggle ever since we lost Nick Larson to Carefree Water in the fall. It's actually we've lost another supervisor recently. So we lost 2 supervisors, and so we're still working on just trying to manage the system the best we can. And then with the staffing resources, that never helps. Since I've been here, I wouldn't say constant, but the consistent changing of staff resources has always been a challenge. Once we get something put in place, we try to get like an SOP written up, a standard operating procedure. When you get new people on board, there's always training involved, new ideas, and it slows us down. But I think we're constantly trying to make progress, and we're improving the system. It's just, it can get frustrating for everybody. Desert Hills has been running a little bit better. Ryan brought some things to my attention. We have to dive a little bit more into it. Last year, we dealt with the fact that we had two of the 3 wells in Desert Hills go out of service. And we weathered that storm, and actually in total last year, we were able to get more, even though they were out of service for 2 months in July and August into September last year, we were actually able for the calendar year, able to get more water production out of our wells last year and run them more efficiently. This year, we're seeing there's a bit of a decline, and I think it might be some operational parameters that we're sending them more Cave Creek water again. So we have to dive into that a little bit more and look into see if it's the well utilization has gone down. It's a challenging system to run because because of the interconnect with the city or the town of Cave Creek, it naturally will take the water from the easiest source, which is that interconnect site at 24th Street and Cloud Road. So we have to sort of and we can't really throttle it so much. So we have to try and blend that and make sure that we force the wells on or utilize the wells as much as we can. And there's some valves that we manipulate in the system. We struggle just because of the way the Desert Hill system is set aside. For those who don't know, is it's geographically, but the well that we have that's in the most northwest corner, which is our largest production well, actually has an arsenic issue. So to manage that, we actually have to blend it with CAP water that comes through the 24th and Cloud interconnect site. So when that well is running, there's actually a hard interlock. So we actually have to open what's called a blend line to fill it. And there's actually a couple of sections of pipeline to allow us to get us the most pure treated CAP water up to that corner of the system. To do that, we actually have several closed valves in the distribution system. So the Desert Hill system doesn't just breathe or flow naturally. We've actually, and it's been done this way for 20 years now, it actually is manipulated. And that's a struggle point. So we actually struggle getting water down along Carefree Highway just because the well production we have down there is the least, and we have to get water down to that side of the system. But if we open the valves too much, we dump too much Cave Creek water down there, and then the wells never turn on. So it's a struggle. So
And those are all manually operated valves, or?
yeah, it'd be hard to automate what's
Yeah,
going on there. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's a struggle for us. I'd really like, and we actually had it in the CIP program to do an wellhead arsenic mitigation, so we can eliminate the blending program. It's just the numbers we got were $2 million. It's a large investment to do it, and that's a large investment to help the system for 1,900 customers. It works now. It's just the efficiencies, and as the system hasn't been growing, we have not been adding meters except for a handful since the 2021 water resource policy went into effect out there. But we're starting to see the system just react a little bit differently. Then every year seems to be a new situation for staff to deal with out there.
Thinking ahead long term, to protect the Desert Hill system, hook up to the Tremonto, Phoenix Tremonto, and getting a supply from the west, I think would benefit everybody, especially long term as they keep building up, through this area with the semiconductor plant. And I know that's a long term thing, Sean. I don't know if that's your thing or if that's town manager.
No. And actually, that was thought of that was identified in the master plan as something to pursue. I've actually had conversations with the City of Phoenix's water services director. Their west side water system, which the Tremonto Reservoir is the reservoir on top of State Route 74 as you go out. It's actually a floating storage reservoir for them. They have a lot of stress on that because of TMSC and I think the project called Halo Vista that surrounds TMSC. To the tune of billions of dollars worth of improvements that they have to make to their distribution system, their west side distribution system. So
Right.
we had that conversation, can we attach another straw over to your system? And the feedback I got was not now and probably not for the next decade while they complete their improvements out there. They currently have plans because they crossed my desk for a large force main / gravity sewer system to take flows from that area down through their jurisdiction, and it'll cross the CAP or our Cap Canal booster or pipeline just north of Deer Valley Road. So they're actually looking to try and get a sewer. I understand they have sewer capacity issues out there, so they got water and sewer issues that they're dealing with out there. So they're trying to get that wastewater flows from that side of their system all the way over to their Cave Creek water treatment plant, which is at the northeast corner of Deer Valley Road and on Cave Creek Road. So so that's a project. I saw the plans because they're crossing our Cap pipeline, so I was able to see the entire project. Like, well,
Yeah.
they're talking massive. So yeah, they're very stressed with everything that's happening on their west side of those.
Understand,
Yeah.
but
They've actually talked about a second connection that we could do along Cave Creek Road, though, and that's of interest to us.
oh, really?
So, but we have to be cautious about it because they have a new site that they're looking along Cave Creek Road to do a storage reservoir that we could participate in, maybe doing a booster pump station. That would have us looking at maybe converting the Cap pipeline south of town core, the town into a second water distribution connection. So that would get us completely out of the water treatment business. They have a reservoir plan in the next 5+ years, so that's something I'd like to pursue with them. But if we pull that trigger, we either have think about bringing another parallel pipeline into the town, or we're getting out of the water treatment business. It's a yes or no. We have to figure this out, and we almost need to do that with a new update to the master plan. So we might, in the next year or so, before the next update to master plan is due, actually get someone engaged to help us map all that out. How would that look and how would that work? But that's another option they threw out to us. But people know, when we had the discussion several years ago with the city of Phoenix about having them help us divert, treat, and deliver our CIP water resources, they said, yes, we have capacity to help you out, but we have constrictions on our distribution system, and that we have to resolve, which is what they've spent on. They spent, I think, over $40 million on the pipeline improvements and the booster station improvement that they're doing south of the town core. South of the town, I keep saying town core, I apologize, south of Carefree Highway. That's in order for them to provide fire protection to their pressure zone 10, which is where our Walmart, our Sprouts actually is in their service area. As part of that, in the next month or two, they'll actually convert those over and actually take over both domestic and fire service to all those areas. So they've invested a lot of money, but their other concern was they didn't want the Cave Creek water system tied off one connection point to them. That's why, again, initially in the master plan, we talked about, that reservoir. I happen to drive by it every day now over on the west side to the Toronto Reservoir. But now with all the stresses they have out there, this idea of another second connection along Cave Creek Road comes to fruition. It's tied further into their distribution system. It ties back into different pressure zones that allows them to better feed us and provide a second supply. Mm-hmm. So it's of interest. It's something I think it's worth us pursuing, but it's going to take a little bit of engineering to figure out. And again, either we're going to run a new parallel pipeline up from that point. It's around Lone Mountain is where they're looking to put this reservoir site. And run a parallel pipeline or convert the CAP pipeline. So,
Well, that could take a lot of the pressure, off of the town. Because then they become obligated to supply, they become our water supplier. And they have a lot more resources and a lot more intelligence, I think, than we can bring to it just as a small. I'm not talking about you.
No, I think it's worth pursuing that conversation with them again. And it's we have a parallel conversation. The idea is would a private utility be able to run the system and deal with the water resource challenges? We'd still have to overcome the water resource challenge regardless, because again, our agreement with Phoenix is to divert, treat, and deliver our water resources to us. And depending on what happens with the Colorado River supplies, we still have to figure out if augmenting that is in case. But yeah, maybe long term, that's something to look towards. That might help us out. It's hard. It's an expensive. It's a hard little system, challenging system to run. With our own 12.5-mile raw water pipeline, 4 inline booster pump stations. We've done a lot of work over the last few years to make that system more reliable, but there are so many single points of failures for us. And then run the treatment plant itself, and we're looking at the next decade probably having to rebuild that treatment plant. The Paul membranes are still functionally working. But at some point in the future, they may need, and that's what the county was actually trying to put us into a order requiring us within the next 5 to 7 years to actually upgrade the plant. That's what we were pushing back a little bit, saying, hey, why do we need that? If I get a connection to Phoenix, I can ramp down production at the plant and just use the Paul membranes and not have to upgrade that plant. We're going to push that out. But eventually we need to rebuild that plant. The technologies will require us to do that. So yeah, we have to face that. So is it better to make that investment in a second connection to Phoenix rather than rebuilding our water treatment plant? That all these things we have to weigh together and figure out what's the best for the town. It's challenging for us, running a utility that's a full-fledged utility, because a small jurisdiction like us wouldn't have a raw water cap pipeline that they're managing, their own water treatment plant they're managing, the entire distribution system with multiple pressure zones. Mm-hmm. And then a wastewater collection system on top of that, and a wastewater plant and a reclaim system. We have everything here. Right. And it's hard to manage it at the scale that we have. So it's a challenge. So yeah, they talked about the challenges, water and wastewater. So Desert Hills and Cape Creek water and wastewater. It's really just keeping up and maintaining the systems. We've got some projects queued up. We actually just successfully completed an upgrade, and actually I looked back and some old master plans. It's been on the books for almost over a decade now. Just an update to our Chipperosa lift station, which we just completed a substantial upgrade that site and get that behind us. We're trying to kick off this year, getting our manhole rehabilitation going, and then also some pipeline repair work going, and then just focusing on optimizing the plant. We actually have a study that I was about to initiate with a consulting firm to help us look at the water efficiency of the wastewater treatment plant. We consistently show up on the high water user list because of the wet odor scrubbers at that treatment plant. So we had a scope of work to actually have a consulting firm help us look at whether those odor scrubbers could be effectively converted to the on-site reclaimed water effluent, which, you know, would be taken away a little bit that we send to Rancho Mañana, but negligible, I think, would be the impact. And then more so, if there's another technology we could look to change to, but then what would be the capital costs and all that, and how that will be the return on investment for doing that. But as we look forward to asking other customers to conserve, I think the town needs to look in our own operations, and that is the one operation. As we start talking about rates, you know, we are directly impacted by those rates ourselves because we pay a lot of money to the water for that water plant, wastewater plant. So, you know, we're just looking to try to continue to optimize. I think the staff have enjoyed moving into the new building down there. I think that actually was a good morale booster that we got them down there in I think it was January, into December and early January. We had sort of a soft ribbon cutting down there. And, you know, we should probably invite the committee down to see the tour of the facility. It's actually very nice, and we're utilizing it for workshops and staff training and just general meetings. We have a good workshop, good training room down there, and there's a nice operation center for the wastewater group, and as well as our public works and our distribution group work out of there.
I wouldn't mind seeing the sewer plant either.
Yeah, it's a small little plant. It doesn't take long to actually walk it. So
Yeah.
And, you know, because of all the work that staff have been doing over the years, you know, it's not odorous. I say that they actually do a good job with it. So, and just today we actually had our every 5 years, we actually have a collection system audit from Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So we just completed that audit today. So I think we will have a couple of recommendations on a few housekeeping things, but I think overall they're very impressed in the fact that we listened. The last time we did the audit, we actually had to correct a few things, and we corrected them very successfully for them. So a lot of that was just housekeeping. So, yeah, again, our biggest challenges are we'll have to monitor how costs work. I've tried to do some analysis of as we bring the City of Phoenix water in, because we have already fixed costs with the CAP pipeline and just running the water treatment plant, staffing costs, some chemical costs, and some other stuff. We expect that to reduce, but not to a one-to-one relationship. So I am very cautious into this next budget year, and we'll monitor that very closely once we start getting the water from the Phoenix Interconnect. We do anticipate to actually get some operational efficiencies from the booster pump stations. If you look at our electrical costs, you know, we're close to $700,000 a year, I think, in electrical costs in Cave Creek Water. Over 500,000 of that is just the CAP pipeline and the water treatment plant site. So that's how much water it just costs us to lift that water 600 feet in elevation, get it to the treatment plant, and then run it through the NERI site. Getting that water into Phoenix, into our pressure zone 1 and 2, which are actually our biggest. Our 1 and 4 will be the booster pump stations, but it'll feed 1, 4, and then through the interconnect we can feed Desert Hills. We're better placing it, so I think our overall pumping efficiency should greatly increase when that comes up and operational, because the NERI site actually uses more energy than running the treatment plant itself. The NERI site was set aside as the primary supply for the town's water system because all the treated water from the water treatment plant has to go through the NERI site. And then it gets boosted to a higher elevation the way it was designed. And then immediately most of the flow actually goes through a pressure reducing valve, which burns that energy off to send it down south into our system. And then it gets burnt off again through another PRV site at Creek Canyon Drive and Cave Road. With the new booster stations at the interconnect site being placed in the pressure zones directly, that should help. We're not burning that head off going through those sites. So that should actually see no efficiency. It is driving us to look at the size of the booster pumps that we have at the NERI site. There's 2 empty pump cans at that site. And we've got a project next year and already starting to work with Black and Veatch to get design parameters to look at getting a smaller pump. Well, we have 3 large 1,500 gallon minute pumps at that site. And in fact, we've repaired 2 of them over the last few years. The third one needs to be repaired, but we've actually talked about for efficiencies to maybe change that out to a smaller pump right off the bat. And then we get the other one rebuilt and used as a spare, and then that would get us 1 smaller pump. Then we can see how that manages, and then look to get pay for the 4th pump, which would be an extra small pump. So we'd have 2 large, 2 small pumps at that site, and allow us to run it more efficiently. Because I think we could utilize the existing electrical equipment while the VFD drives and motors starters are all set for the larger horsepowers. They actually work on the smallers. smaller pumps too. So that's a conversation we just had last week as we were starting to look at starting up this facility. And it's something I think we can pull the trigger on a lot more quickly and getting a smaller pump and motor than to have to do pump, motor, and drive and then tie all the instrumentation together. And that helps. That'll help because as we walk through it and whiteboarded, bringing the interconnect site on, the operation of the Neary site is drastically going to change. And then that has repercussions in our Carroll Heights and our Rockaway sites too in the system. So yeah, that's our next biggest challenge is introducing this new water supply to the town. Where it's coming into the system is completely different than how we've been supplying it for many years. Even when the old water company ran the system, they were basically feeding the town core and then letting it flow downhill. But again, most of our demand is in the lower section of the town, south of the town core, south of Hidden Valley. Along Cave Creek Road is our pressure zone 4 to Creek Canyon, then it becomes pressure zone 1 all the way out to our Desert Hills connection at 24th Street. So I think and I'm going to watch that very closely to see again how we can get our usages down and see if we can quickly get a smaller pump into the Neary site to allow that to run, and then we'll have to figure out some programming to make sure it runs properly. So
You see that annual water loss, your targets haven't been met, and the target is basically repeated both in Cave Creek and Desert Hills. Is there any effort? I mean, what are you doing? Are there capital projects that are associated with that, or is it just manning and how you're running the water?
Part of it is actually part of our water loss is actually overall just running our own treatment plant actually is causing a loss in the system. I think the last time I looked at numbers, over 9% loss of the water through the treatment plant and the treatment plant process that comes out of it. So that's actually factored into this number too. So immediately when we go to the city of Phoenix, they will be per the IGA charging us, in fact, a 5% loss that's actually built into their calculation. So right off the bat, when we're not running those Westech filters, our Paul filters, if we run the plant just on Pauls, we think we'll increase the overall efficiency of the water treatment plant because the Westechs are very inefficient and we've got a blended system right now. So with that'll be one step down. We've looked at this before. Ryan, do you want to jump in as far as can you maybe explain how the calculation is done? What's in that calculation?
Yeah, so it's comparison between non-revenue water and water production. So ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, looks at annual water loss based on a calculation of billable data versus non-billable, right? So it's really a mass calculation based on, how much water you're treating, you're delivering, and then you're selling. And they kind of look at that and they say, well, if you produce X amount of water and you only sell X amount as revenue, that's your non-revenue water, and that's your water loss. So it's really an ADWR requirement to look at on an annual basis, your water loss. Looking at the projections just for Desert Hills here though, actuals for 25 fiscal year 6.64. Our targets do go down for fiscal year 26, goes down to 5%. So there's some reductions there that, based on the things Sean's talking about, lowering the amount of, waste, I guess you'd say, water, backwash water, things that end up going to the lakes, is going to get reduced by not running the plant as much.
But again, not to correct you, but you had 6.64 and went down to the estimate, the target was 5, but the actual estimate's 7.
Right.
So
the
actual is actually going up. That's why
it
that
is.
was my point.
So our target,
Yeah.
but the target is 5.
Oh yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
yeah.
the goal would be to reduce it, and by reducing it, there'll be indirect ways, and then there'll be direct ways. Water conservation, like we've touched on, huge. Having the My 360 now on catching leaks early, that all goes to non-revenue water. Water we're not necessarily selling customers sometimes. So catching leaks, conservation efforts, reduction in backwash water, and then things we've talked about is, we've brought up NODES a couple times and some of these other methods where we do have to flush the system for water quality. So meeting water quality is critical. And how do we do that? And how can we start conserving some water? Looking at a system like NODES, which my understanding Scottsdale and some of the other municipalities have been using for the last few years, you you go to areas of the system, you hook up between hydrants, and there's a filtration system that it goes through that actually removes disinfectant byproduct, which is DVP, one of the main reasons we actually do flushing, and puts that water back in the system. There is some waste associated with it, but very minimal. Typically, it's a bag system, but certain municipalities have been using that to reduce their lost water, and those are the kinds of things we should probably start pursuing as it gets tighter and tighter.
I realize that there's issues with them, that there's sometimes things you can do and some you can't. I saw the targets were not being met. I was just curious if there was a focus. So the targets obviously were trying to reduce it, but
Yeah.
it didn't look like it would be very successful at this point.
Yeah, like in Desert Hills, an example, it's in 22, we actually changed how we were calculating it, well, from a rate study, because actually we were trying to charge some of the production losses that Cape Creek Water had to incur by itself, and then while we were serving that water to Desert Hills, we weren't allowed to, weren't taking advantage of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, per the state standards, we're allowed to account for that?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're allowed to account for losses as part of the annual reporting process. So we
Treatment and transmission losses
it's a
specifically.
treatment and transmission loss of 5% that gets added on to Desert Hills as part of their loss.
So we changed that in 22 as part of the rate study. But the other thing in Desert Hills that's going on, as the meters age out there, we actually now and we actually have a capital program to start working on replacing the meters. The first batch of the Neptune meters were starting to be installed in 2012, so they're over 10 years old. So we are starting to see, I think, a little bit of loss in accuracy of the metering out there. So it's in our interest to, as part of our conversion to AMI, to get Desert Hills updated. So I think that's why we're creeping up a little in Desert Hills. I think we were getting a loss in revenue water metering through that system. In Cave Creek Water, we actually did do last year we did increase a little bit, because I think we got into a case where we properly were billing for the accounts in some cases. I don't know if overall, if we looked at that numbers with changing of the meters that happened last year. And these numbers are actually, well, we do it on a fiscal year. When we report to the state, it's done on a calendar year, so it's a little off. So the numbers always look a little odd. We're actually trying to compare them all the time. But yeah, we are looking at, as Ryan indicated, ways to get that down. We want to. It's actually I don't know if it's a state mandate. I think it does come from Arizona Department of Water Resources as part of the Phoenix Active Management Area, which we belong in. As part of it started in maybe in the third, and we're actually now to the fifth management plan for water loss reductions. We're supposed to be under 10% in systems. That's where we're trying to get down to. So. And it's something we watch closely, and as Ryan indicated, we do have some issues with just our water supplies and what we're dealing with, and it's something we're thinking about how to reduce that. But we still have challenges with just running the system in the way that it's set up in the distribution of that system. We have a large 12-inch water line that runs all the way up Schoolhouse Road, crosses Fleming Springs, and then goes up Spur Cross. That in reality should be an 8 or 10-inch line. So we have a lot of volume of water just sitting there in a line that has not enough consumption on it. So it's a challenge for our system. And we actually have looked in the idea of trying to reduce the size of that line, and it's not an easy situation because there's a lot of direct taps onto that. So
How many water customers do not have the Neptune meters?
we're all Neptune right now. The
Okay.
issue is that the first generation of Neptune meters that were installed in Desert Hills are really not AMI compatible. Up through 2015 was about to change, I think they said. So the first generation of meters, that's the bulk of the Desert Hills meters were changed out are about close to half of, I remember we did the calculation, they're called a V3 version of the meters, which only have a 0.1 watt radio. Then in 2025, Neptune actually saw what was happening, and they changed they increased the intensity of the radios to 1 watt to allow for an easier conversion. And then it took us till now to get the infrastructure in place, and we're starting to get the collector sites out in Desert Hills so we can start picking them up. But we're all Neptune system. 60% right now we're able to pick up either through collector sites or the handful of meters. We have about 120 cellular enabled meters where they're sending a direct cellular signal up. Our preference is to get it to a collector site, because cellular does actually have additional costs that you have to absorb. And some agencies pass that to the customers. We chose to absorb it. We're trying to limit the number of cellulars we have. Now what we really need to do is add a couple of collector sites in Desert Hills and start changing out those pre-2015 meters out in the system. There's some struggles with trying to account for where they show up. Just based on serial numbers, it doesn't make sense in some cases. There wasn't a real rhyme or reason when they changed those things out.
They
Going,
recycle it. They recycle.
They were moving them around. It's like, so.
John, do you have an estimate of numbers as far as that you're still trying to get onto the AMI system?
Yeah, just a thought too,
Yeah.
to increase the water awareness in the town, would it make sense to somehow provide the well customers with a Neptune system so that they would be better aware of what their usages are?
Well, there's a cost to the device itself. The Neptune meters are, I think right now, 3/4 inch meters, it's over $300, I think, for a unit. So we'd have to figure out how factor in who's going to pay that cost and the piping of that. As far as getting it into the system and I guess offering that, if people want them, people are on well water, they have the luxury that right now, Arizona Department of Water Resources, you run an exempt well. My understanding, the regulations are that, well, you're restricted under an exempt well, depending on the time frame it got drilled, to 35 gallons a minute, I think 10 acre feet a year usage. They don't require you to report on that. So now we're trying to ask our customers to, report on something that the state even doesn't require them to report on, and what's the benefit to them.
If we start educating people that the normal is 10,000 gallons a day, I think it'd be useful for them to know how they compare to that.
One thing I'd be interesting to do is look to see if we can correlate between the ADWR well records to see if we know. Actually, we can also do it through our backflow programs, figure out, and I think we have good data sets, is who might have a well, and looking to see if that's impacting their water usage from us. We've actually had a couple of cases where the wells have gone down, and we've noticed that, and we've caught that as customers have increased their usage month to month, and all of a sudden they do a big spike. Well, their well went down, and they just turned on their faucet. They did the connection. We have a number of customers that have both water supplies. I don't know what the true number is.
There's no requirement that they cap the well if they have city water?
No, we actually just require them. That's a trigger for us to require a backflow device. So there is no cross connection potential at that structure. So we actually, that's why a lot of our customers who have, there's also other requirements. If they have other outside uses, there's potential cross contamination on site. So we actually have a list that they go through. There's like 10 or 12 criteria that we look at to require if someone has a backflow, but having a private on-site well is one of them.
I would say 1 in 5, 1 in 6. So we've got 200 on the backflow program, so we may have about 100 customers that have full.
I thought we'd more, but maybe
That many?
be interesting to do the calculation.
Yeah,
Math
'cause I
it
mean,
out.
we've got about 700, 600, 700 customers on BSI.
The backflow, okay.
With backflows, and if you take the commercial customers out, I would think maybe like 1 in 5 come through with a well.
It might be worth us doing a little more analysis on that to see if we can figure out where there are. We actually do, we can actually, we have access to the ADWR well record register. You can download that and we can correlate it back to our user base. It's just whether or not they kept the ADWR records up with our user accounts. So be interesting for us to try and map that out.
Like if they're at a higher elevation, that can be a trigger, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're on the mountainside or something, water backflow into the system, I'd say that's probably another big one.
Yeah.
There's other ones that are on there. You have a chemical feed system. You got solar panels without, a backflow device or something, high cooling systems. So there's certain questions. You've got irrigation system with connectivity. So
We're getting off of our budget item, so we need to.
Yeah.
Wait, I mean, it's back in.
It's fun though.
Yeah. Well, just ask the one question that came up is how many, we've about 4,500 water accounts total. We have about 60%, just over 60% are being read by the AMI systems. That leaves us 1,800 meters still to get converted to the AMI system. So just under 40%. So we're hopeful with the Mount Gillen site, which is the one that City of Phoenix is allowing us access to. We're actually just waiting for our vendor to get all the equipment together. That'll start, that should take a big chunk out of that because that will be located and hopefully pick up, even though the lower wattage meters are mostly out in Desert Hills. We do think that with that coverage out there that we might be able to pick them up. Either that or we start to have to look at augmenting them with an external antenna. But at that point, the older meters it might be more cost efficient just to change them out to a newer meter. So that's where we're trying to balance it out. So yeah, but we have a CIP project. We've carried most of the money forward to next year. to start that. And we'll probably go out and like we did with the water meter change out for Cape Creek Water is actually solicit and get a contractor to help us do that work, to help augment it. In the case of the Cape Creek system, we also got grant funding, which was good and bad. Getting federal dollars can be a pain in the rumpus to actually administer, and that actually required us to do things like wage rates and stuff like that, which actually did. In that case, we know it costs us a premium, probably over 20% cost of the project by doing that, but we got half the project paid for, so that sort of balance it out. Bigger issue on getting the federal dollars for the meter change out is that we went through over a year-long environmental process to get clearance to start the project.
Anything else from you, Sean? Anything to the committee members?
No.
Questions?
No, again, you guys are asking good questions, and we'll keep you, again, we set these performance measures were things we looked at, and again, I recommend you look through that, and we'll be starting, surprisingly, starting to do updates in a few months for next year's budget. But you know, one of the main things I really want to start looking at is closely watching how the system performs and our cost of the system as we bring the interconnect site up online. I'm very hopeful with the way we're going to boost it. We're going to drastically reduce our cost of running the cap pipelines, and that gets offset by the charge that we get to Phoenix, but the efficiency of the overall system because of where we're placing the booster pumps.
Great.
Yeah.
If the committee members have no further questions, member of the public had a couple comments or quick. You got an answer? Okay. Then, if there's nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Only to set future meetings.
Oh, that's right. Set future meetings. We don't have any of those set, do we? Sorry. Sorry, Nancy. Have to table your motion for a second.
It's okay.
Cheers. I don't. Is there a reason to have a meeting in June or July?
I would say perhaps if Ryan can get the demographic information and we can kind of plug that into the model and discuss that on a preliminary basis, that might give us some time to noodle it a little bit before fourth quarter.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. But I said that last time, so I apologize. I'll get it done.
Do you want to skip June and try July, or you want to?
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that.
I think we've been doing the fourth Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So that'd be the 28th of July, if I'm looking correctly.
I have it
29th. I'm sorry.
22nd. 29th.
Well, let's see. You're right. There is 1, 2, 3, no.
Wednesday.
Oh, that's right. The July 1st is a Wednesday. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the 22nd or 29th. What is staff's? Which is better for staff if there's one that's better for staff first. I know there's a conflict.
I'll be gone on the 29th.
Okay. So does the 22nd work for Sean for staff? Or wait.
I don't see a conflict right now, so.
Yeah. Nancy, does the 22nd work for you? July?
Yes.
Works for me.
Okay. We will put the 22nd of July. Let's look at August. Let's see. Be the 26th of August.
I'm okay with that.
I don't know right now, but I'm pretty good at Zoom. So even if I'm somewhere, I could come in, hopefully.
Looks good to me. August 26th.
And then I'll just put September out there too, just to 1, 2, 3, 4, be the 23rd is the fourth Wednesday of September.
Would that fit into your schedule, Sean? You were going to give us some preliminary information, or would it work out better if it was a little earlier?
Yeah, Good question. On the drought management plan.
Yeah, so right now, again, it's just on or before October is, I think, as we put it in town code, give us some flexibility. So my goal would try to sort of push that more towards out. Yeah, if we do like in August, then, you know, it gives me some, or even September. I'll know by the 22nd. It's really coming down to when the Bureau of Reclamation gives us the announcement. And
Well,
then I can do the calculation. We have a specific calculation that we do, and we're talking about tweaking it in the way it's written in code. Because as we do things like this water augmentation, right now, the way it's written, you could interpret it that that water augmentation actually means that we don't go into the drought. And it's like, well, no, we don't want to do that. We're doing it should be long-term water resources, not short-term water resources that we're looking at.
well, let's assume that on August 26th, we're gonna know what your CAP allocation is. You're probably gonna know what your schedule is. Hopefully have some thoughts on where you're, you know, hopefully at that meeting, maybe we can have the preliminary discussion
Then-
on the drought management.
Yeah, the
Have a
calculation.
variable adjustment for September based on what we found out in
Yeah,
August.
and then we can either move the 23rd meeting to in September to
Yeah.
a different date if necessary at that.
Okay, want to pencil in the 23rd then?
Just
Yeah.
easier to put it on calendars now.
All right. Yeah, you're right. That hopefully by August 26th, we've got the announcement for 2027, and it's a simple calculation. It's actually just, you know, it's really that'll in fact, we're assuming no NIA water available to order. How much the cut is to the M&I water, and then based on our current usage, what's our projection for either growth or reductions for next year, which I'm going to assume that will pretty much stay flat, and we'll just see, you know, where our water resources fit within then. And then and that's the only other tweak that we were talking about to the way it's written in code is to remove any short-term augmentation from the calculation so that it's clear. And I might just have to bring that up this year, and whether or not it requires a full code amendment is what I'm discussing with the attorneys right now.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, yeah, so the 26th should at least
yeah, we should get an idea.
get an idea, maybe complete it at that point, and if not, maybe
Yeah.
the 26th, I mean, the 23rd. Okay, those three, any agenda items for July that other than the rate issue at this point?
Not at this time.
Are we gonna know anything about the RFP for,
It didn't sound like you were gonna have that invitation for bids.
Well, our internal goal right now is we're working for probably a release. I think they're talking about mid-June and leaving it out for somewhere around 60 days is sort of the schedule. Backing into a schedule, we're trying to get it done by the fall to give council the information. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we also know that the water companies need some time to put proper bid packages together. So
Why don't we put the invitation for bids on the July meeting just to discuss, see what the status of it is, and
yeah,
if it's available, we might have read them.
it'll be
Or look through
it should
them.
be released before June 22nd, so we can let you know again how many people have picked up this. But as far you can go through the package so you can see it, and then because there's some interesting discussions that we're having as far as we're actually looking at all the town's IGAs in place, like our IGA with the city of Phoenix actually does allow for the transfer of the rights to the agreement, but the other party has to agree. So, you know, so City of Phoenix has the right to say, no, we don't want to work with a private water company. You know, which then means that the investment in an $18 million construction of an interconnect site goes. Well, we can't tell them what their council is going to say about that amendment in the future. And then we also still have an IGA in place to divert, treat, and deliver water for Carefree. People forget about that. They have not called us to ask for that. You know, with Nick being over there, I actually had a conversation with him about it. And yeah, there is actually an interconnect site that has not been open since it got rebuilt, and but they haven't ordered any water from since 2019. But they may want to order water from us. But then we had to look at that IGA and to see what's in place, and we're looking at all the other contracts. So there's a lot of things to think about this, and we're having to run through it. It takes a lot of time actually running through everything and getting all the information so that somebody can do a proper bid for us too. So.
Okay, well, we got the next three meetings. We're gonna not have anything in June, and now I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Hi.